was boiling in my blood, and I was so pissed, and it completely ruined the rest of my day, because here I was going to my dad's doctor's appointment for his post after his surgery, and I have to go back to work. But now my entire blood is boiling, right? I'm highly upset. I feel triggered all over again. I don't understand why my own father, is the one doing this to me. I was so upset that I felt like leaving him at the hospital, not to be cruel, but because I had to go to work after his appointment, and I needed time to decompress what just happened, because the last thing I want is to be so triggered and angry that I show up to work, to my students, to my coworkers, with that level of intensity inside of me. But I had to stay because he pretty much needs me to stay with him. So I stayed with my dad to make sure his post-op goes well. I, understood whatever the doctor has said to him, etc. But I decided, you know what? Enough is enough. I have to address the situation. So when I got him to his place and I stopped, he was about to get out of the car, and I said, Daddy, please, before you go, let me ask you a question. I hate to do this, but I have to. I feel compelled to talk about this. If you're someone who has been healing from something for a long time, or you're someone who just started on your healing journey, I need you to please pause and listen to this message. Something happened this morning that severely triggered me. And when I tell you the truth, even sitting here, my blood is boiling. My blood is boiling because what I've realized, and I've known this for a long time, but something that happened today, and what it re-triggered and what the lesson it re-taught me, is that there are people who are committed to blocking your opportunity to heal. The sad thing is that a lot of the times, these people are people who are close to you, people who you love, people who should be the one who are supporting your healing. I was in a car this morning with a loved one, and I hate talking about this because I think for the very first time in a long time, I am going to be very specific and very honest about my life, and also who this individual is. So there are times where I've tried to talk about my healing process, and I've been very ambiguous about naming people, because I'm one of those people who, even though someone hurt me, I try to protect them. I try to protect their image. I try to protect who they are, because I don't want people to see certain people in my life in a negative light. So even though some people have been very clear cut about blocking my healing or protecting me or playing the role that they need to play in my life, I still try to protect them. But today I'm going to just be honest and talk about it. Not because I want people to see certain individuals in my life in a negative light, but because what I know is that when we start sharing our stories, we help free other people. And I truly hope that this message today is going to free someone, is going to encourage you, is going to give you the boldness and the courage you need to heal. I was in a car with my father this morning, and I was driving him to his appointment because he had to have surgery. During the process of he had a surgery yesterday. And in the process of driving him to the hospital for his post-op this morning, we were in the car just chit-chatting, and I was telling him some things in my life that were happening, and just things that I thought were funny, and we were laughing about it briefly. And the second I paused from telling him about things that are happening in my life, just very really general things, and I paused for about 15-20 seconds, he asked me a question that completely re-triggered my entire healing process. He asked me this: is your husband still here? And I knew exactly where he was going with that, right? I knew exactly who he was referring to. But I just paused for a moment to play dumb, because I really wanted to have him fully say everything out. So I asked him, what husband? And he stumbled for a little bit, and then he goes, and then he says the individual name. Immediately, like I said, I was already triggered the second I heard that question, because I know who he was referring to. But immediately I got upset. And I said to him, like, Daddy, I have told you over and over again to stop referring to this individual as my husband. Now, I don't want you to tune. I want you to stay and listen to this, because this is going to relate to you in some way or another. So I got married back in 2021. to a guy who I never, ever, ever should have gotten close to and never should have walked down the aisle with. I got married to this individual, and within 7 months, I quickly realized that I may have just signed my own death certificate. I realized very quickly that I may have just signed my own death certificate. And when, in fact, when we got married, within 2 months, I felt it strongly in my spirit that I had just signed up with my I just waived my destiny, right? So I decided to leave this individual. And when I went to my father, I'm African, so we have certain traditions of things like protocols we have to follow, or that we need to follow, partially for the sake of respect and partially for the sake of tradition. When I decided to leave this individual, I went to my father and other family members, but especially to my dad, because a lot of things were happening in marriage that I knew, oh my goodness, I just fell into the trap that I've been trying to skip and never fall into, which is cycle of abuse. So I remember I went to my dad one early morning. To make a little long story short, one early morning before I even got divorced, before I even knew I wanted a divorce, I went to my dad because I had a pretty bad dream, and that dream just shook me up, right? There are a lot of different dreams I was having, and now when I look back, it was so clear God did not want me in that relationship, and I did not understand, I did not see and really process it. I had a different perspective that was not high enough to really understand what God was saying to me. So I entered into this marriage, and one of the first things that I saw in a dream when I was married to this individual was I had a dream my engagement ring cracked. And I went to my father, and I remember it was like around 6 in the morning, and I felt so unsettled in my spirit. And I went to my dad, and Daddy, I had a dream, my ring cracked. Now, my dad, to some huge extent, he's a spiritual person. And my dad said to me, And I asked him, I said, Daddy, what? He said, you have to pray very hard. He said, you need to pray and really fast. And then I asked my dad, I said, what does a dream mean? And my dad told me, he said, based on that dream, your marriage is not going to stand, meaning that your marriage will not work out. So you really have to pray very hard and fast. Fast forward like months down the line, maybe like 4 months later on, there were things that were just happening in my marriage at that time that were just shaking me to my core as to, my man, wake up. This is the same exact thing you did not want for yourself. This is the kind of relationship you've been fighting so hard to never get in. This is the kind of relationship you did not want your children to come into. And yet here you are. Wake up. And at some point, about 7 months into the marriage, I left. Now, when I went to my family and told them what was happening, my dad called a meeting with one of my uncles, my sister, and my aunt, right? So we had this meeting where we all sat there, and the guy that was married to at that time, his family were invited, because again, it's cultural that the family come together. His family were invited. We just sat there, and I shared with them how this individual was treating me in the marriage, right? And not only that this individual was treating me so terribly, but he continuously tried to make me look like a bad person. The people who do not know me, if they heard how this guy described me, they would think I was the most horrible woman, the most horrible, at that time, stepmother ever. Because he was so determined to paint me in the most worst light possible. But I thank God that sometimes people know you so well that someone can go behind your back and say something, and those people can come back and say, my mom that I know, that's not her character. So this individual tried to paint me in the worst light possible. Fast forward to the end of that meeting, right? Even his mother sat there ashamed of what her son was doing to me. At the end of that meeting, and I remember at the end of that meeting, my family, against tradition, they pull you aside and ask you, what do you want to do? So they pulled me aside and asked me at the end of that meeting, Maman, what is your decision? And at this time, I had left the house. I moved to an Airbnb, etc. And I said to them, I am not moving back with him. And I have decided I'm going to file for divorce and leave. And then my uncle at that time said to me, well, we think that you should go back with your husband, right? And I remember saying to my uncle, if you guys are so determined to have me go back with this individual, what you're basically telling me is that you want my death. Because when I left, this guy had no idea I was leaving. He was at work one day. I packed some stuff and I ran. I am not stupid to know that this guy can injure me, and he's shown me so many signs in the beginning that he's someone that can easily injure me. He showed me so many signs in the relationship that it was just a matter of time that this guy would destroy me in one way or another. So the fact that I was able to successfully leave, pretty much outsmart him and leave without him even knowing, I am not stupid to know that if I go back, only God knows what he could do. So I said to my uncle, if you guys want me to go back with this guy, what you're telling me is that you're completely fine with this guy one day murdering me, one day severely injuring me. And if you want to hear more about this, about how I knew this guy could seriously injure me, let me know. I can make a separate video about this. But my uncle kept on insisting that, oh, you know, the things that he did, he said he's sorry, you know, and you should go back with him. And for me, it baffled me that for the most part, my father and family were not standing up for me and were somewhat encouraging me to go back to this man. And the thing that baffled me the most was because so this was back in 2021, right? This was in October 2021. Just a year before, we lost one of my older sisters through domestic abuse, where her children's father killed her in the woods and left her body there. So for me, I was so baffled that my father sits there and hear his youngest daughter, come to me and say, Daddy, this man is doing ABCD to me. And his immediate reaction is not to say, like, his immediate reaction was not, let me take my daughter out before I lose this one too. His reaction was all about how he can't encourage me to leave my marriage, etc. Going fast forward to today. So when we're in the car and he brought up that question about, you know, is your husband still here? It shocked me to my core because my dad and I have been here before. Last year, he had asked me about, oh, do you see your husband? And I had shut it down and I said to him, you know I left him. You know that I filed for divorce. You know that he's not my husband anymore. Please stop referring to me as my husband. And then he had said to me, oh, okay, sorry, left it as that. When I had left this guy and got a divorce, he said to my sister, I don't understand why my man is divorcing this guy. Let me teach you a lesson here. And it's unfortunate because one of those young ladies at my high school that I work at, I said something to her recently, and it pains me to say this to her because she's a young 14, 15-year-old girl, but I still knew that I had to share this message with her. Not this full message, but I'm going to tell you what I said to her that really hurt me to say to her. I said to this young lady at my high school, I said to her, I looked at her and I said, listen, I'm going to tell you something, and I hate that I have to say this to you, but I know that I need to say this to you. And I said, there's some of us, girls like us, where we don't have people to protect us. And even though our parents should be the one protecting us, unfortunately, a lot of them or some of them will not do that. Some of our parents will fail to protect us. And because of that, it is our responsibility to do that for ourselves. And I said to her, you are such a young girl, and I hate to say this message to you, but the earlier you learn this, that it is your job to protect yourself, the better your life will turn out. And for me, I had to learn by college that I had to let go of this idea of my father being my protector, my dad being the person who shows as a representative figure who protects me. I had to let that go by college, because what I learned was that each time I was hoping my dad was going to protect me, he showed me the complete opposite, that in fact he would be the one to somehow somewhere inflict injury. And I love my father dearly, but it's just a reality, right? And even through the process of writing my book, I kept trying to find ways to humanize him, because as much as the things that he's done or did not do, I love my dad and I honor my father. When he brought up this question this morning, I thought to myself, are you just not going to change? So this morning he brought up the question, I shut it down. And I said, Daddy, I've told you over and over to stop referring to this individual as my husband. And mind you, this guy and I have been divorced for about a year, almost a year now. And I said to him, I've told you over and over to stop referring to this man as my husband. Like, if you really care about his well-being, you can find a way to contact him. And the crazy thing is that this guy was so mean. He was not considered my family. He did not prioritize my family. He did not prioritize me. He did not have a relationship with my father, right? So it's not even as though him and my father had developed a relationship that was now hard for my father to let go, right? They had very brief encounter, with one of them being when he went to ask my hand in marriage, and other few brief encounters. So him and daddy never had a relationship to begin with. So for me, it's just like, what in the world are you doing? So for you to bring up this individual just tells me that you are so committed almost to blocking me from healing from the things that I've decided to heal from. So when I brought up to him this morning in the car, I'm like, Daddy, why would you even bring that up? I said, are you saying that I can no longer get married to anybody else because I'm married to this person, so now I'm forever stuck being his wife? And he said to me, no, it's just that, people who know you guys, when they see you, they will still ask, that don't know about your, your breakup. When they see you, they will still ask you, how's your husband? And I said to him, Daddy, the people who don't know that we've split up, when they ask me, I tell them that we are no longer together, and they let it be, right? They let it go. So why is it you that you're my father? You know we're no longer together. Yes, so you're the one who continued to bring this up. I don't understand. And then he said, oh, okay, I'm sorry. And he left it as that. I was boiling in my blood, and I was so pissed, and it completely ruined the rest of my day, because here I was going to my dad's doctor's appointment for his post after his surgery, and I have to go back to work. But now my entire blood is boiling, right? I'm highly upset. I feel triggered all over again. I don't understand why my own father, is the one doing this to me. I was so upset that I felt like leaving him at the hospital, not to be cruel, but because I had to go to work after his appointment, and I needed time to decompress what just happened, because the last thing I want is to be so triggered and angry that I show up to work, to my students, to my coworkers, with that level of intensity inside of me. But I had to stay because he pretty much needs me to stay with him. So I stayed with my dad to make sure his post-op goes well. I, understood whatever the doctor has said to him, etc. But I decided, you know what? Enough is enough. I have to address the situation. So when I got him to his place and I stopped, he was about to get out of the car, and I said, Daddy, please, before you go, let me ask you a question. And then he said, okay. So I asked him, I said, I genuinely want to know, why is it that you hate me and my siblings? And he asked me, hate you and your siblings? What do you mean? And I said, Daddy, you've made it so clear that you hate us, and I want to really ask you today why. And he said to me, he said, Mama, why would I hate you and your siblings? You guys are my children. If I hate you guys, that means I don't like myself. How can I hate you guys and like other people? And I said to him, but the reality is, Daddy, you have shown us over and over that you hate us. And I can give you many examples of how you've done this. And I gave him some examples. And I said, when you decide to not protect me, at an earlier age, I have to accept that and be okay with it. And it was like a bit of a longer conversation. It was more of like a monologue of me telling him how the way you've been treating my siblings tonight is not okay, and enough is enough. And I said to him, I continue to be a good daughter to you. I continue to honor you. I continue to show up for you, not because you deserve it, not because I think you're a great father. I do it because at the end of the day, you are my father. Because at the end of the day, I want to honor God. I want to honor you the best that I can, not because you deserve it, but because you're my father. If you do not want to participate in my healing, I get it. I understand it. When you decide to let me stay in a marriage with a guy that wasn't good for me, when you decide to let me walk down the aisle with a guy that wasn't good for me, and this is the thing, my dad mentioned to me before the marriage that marriage wasn't going to be good for me. And he said to me basically that he had a dream I was getting married, but that was not the guy that he saw in the dream. And he had it in his spirit that this man wasn't the man for me. As someone who did not have a relationship with a father, did not really understand where he was coming from, I still went ahead and married a guy. So for me, it's like, okay, let's say I was hard-headed, and when I had married a man, when I come to you, so he said to me that he could not tell me to not be with this guy, because at the end of the day, one day in the future, I can end up saying that, I was in a relationship, my father ruined it for me. So I said to him, especially as somebody who has lost a daughter, his oldest daughter, through domestic abuse, don't you think that you saving my life is more important than what I will say in the future? As a father, don't you think that you saving my life, your daughter's life, is more important than her being upset at you for breaking up a relationship? And I said to him, like, Daddy, you've come up to me a couple of different times with women you wanted to get married to. One of those women and that relationship was when I was in middle school. And even in middle school, I told my father, she's not good for you and I do not support the relationship. He didn't listen, went ahead anyway, tried to get married and it backfired on him. And it happened twice. So I said to him, the fact that you as my father and me as your daughter, even from early as middle school and college, me telling you that a relationship isn't good for you, that's me loving you. And at that time, we did not even have a good relationship, my dad and I. And I still try to protect him and tell him, Daddy, this person is not good for you. So the fact that you feel like you cannot do the same for me as your daughter, it baffles me, number one. Number two, if you feel like you cannot tell me to leave a guy, when I willingly come to you and tell you that this relationship is bad for me and that I can't stay in this relationship, why didn't you support me? And then he said, oh, what do you mean I didn't support you? I'm like, first of all, you told my sister that you were confused as to, why I was leaving this guy and getting a divorce. Secondly, you've shown so many evidence that you do not support me. So for the very first time, I had to address my father and be very bold and not quiver. Because for me, this is my thing. And this is a message that I want to send to you. There are people who are so committed to blocking your opportunity to heal. There are so many people who, and sometimes these people are your parents, they're your sibling, they're your best friend, that you choose to heal from someone, heal from something. And instead of them providing you the space, instead of them encouraging your healing, they will not do it. Instead, they will be the one to hinder you. And the way that some of the way people hinder your healing is by bringing up the past that they know so well you are healing from, that you are trying to forget. And my father and people know that I left this man, and I, in so many ways, were broken. And we're currently in 2024, and I am still recovering from things that happened in that relationship. So when I've gotten to this place in my life where I'm not spending my everyday thinking about this marriage, this past relationship, when I'm in a place in my life where I'm bouncing back, when I'm in a place in my life where I'm healing, why is it that you feel you have to bring that past up, especially unnecessarily? So listen to this message. People, especially some people that you love, will be the one that hinder your healing. It is your job to stand your boundaries and stand up for yourself. And I know there are people who are going to be wondering, why in the world would you even be around a parent who treats you that way? And there are people who are going to say, oh, you should not be around a parent like that. And I get it. Okay, to each its own. One of the things that I would encourage is that at the end of the day, when it comes to your healing and your peace of mind, you have to choose your battles. For me, I know that I do not have the heart to stay with my father, especially because he's an elder, right? He's almost 80. And my dad needs a lot of help here and there. I know for me that it would not be of my good conscience. I'm just someone who loves people and try to be there for people as much as I can. And yes, sometimes that backfires. Sometimes it's kind of up to my detriment. So one of the things that I'm learning is how to have boundaries where you can be unhealthy for me, but if I want to help you, I want to be there for you, I can still be there for you without it causing great mental health of me. So I am not encouraging that if your parent is toxic, that you stick around with them. I'm not encouraging that. Do what is best for you. But I know for me being there for my parent as long as I live is important to me. Not because, like I said to him, not because he's a great father, not because he's a good father, not because he deserves it, but because I deserve to have the mental peace. I know my father is healthy. I deserve to have the mental peace. I know that my dad is okay. I deserve to have the peace. I know that his basic necessities will be met. So please understand that there are people who are going to stand in the way of your healing. You can still put your foot down and speak to them. You can decide to just stay away from that person completely. I know for me, when I first was going through my divorce, at some point I blocked my father and certain members of my family. I blocked them completely because I needed that space to heal. It took me months for me to unblock my dad because of the reality is that he was standing in the way of my progress of healing. So I knew for myself, this is a person that I need to block. Okay? So please understand, when it comes to healing, one thing I will note is that healing is a messy process. It is a messy process. You don't go it's not a linear line, right? You don't go straight and you heal. It's a messy process. Some days you're up, some days you're down. And some people that you love will be the same people who make you go up and down. So there are people who, and part of the reason I'm making this message is because sometimes we have expectations of who it should be that's there for us, of who should be protecting us. And sometimes because we have those expectations, of our father should be the one who protect our honor, our dad should be the one who protect us. Sometimes because we have those type of expectations, it leaves us severely disappointed, hurt, and just broken. And for me, I'm so glad, I'm thankful to God that I've gotten to a place in my life where I've accepted my father for who he is. And who he is a father who decided that, you know what, my children, I don't care about them enough to be there for them. And I've accepted that. And I said this to my dad today because this is something I've said plenty of time. I said to my dad for the first time, I told him this truth. And I said to him, Daddy, let me tell you the truth. If I was on the side of the road bleeding and you came walking, I would not have the expectation that you will stop to help me. If you stop to help me, I will be grateful. But I would not expect that you will stop to hurt me if I was on the side of the road, hurt, bleeding. Because you have shown plenty of time that is not your responsibility. That's my dad. You have shown plenty of time that you don't care. And I've come to accept that. So if you're not going to play that role as a father, at least allow me to protect myself. If you do not want to contribute to my healing, at least stop blocking my healing. Stop hindering my healing. Because at the end of the day, I've realized the one person that's going to protect me, that should protect me, is me. Right? It's a sad reality as a girl, as a woman. And now I'm in my 30s, so I can't take on a full responsibility. But as a little girl who was growing up, you should have protected me. You didn't. And now, as in my teenage years, early 20s, I realized that, you know what? I'm just going to release you. I'm going to release that responsibility off you, and I'm going to take it full on. And I pray that God will bless me with a great husband that despises my abusive past. That God will bless me with a good husband who makes it his duty to protect me. But until then, and even until then, I know that my dad has been relieved of every responsibility as a father for my life. I will so choose to be there for him because I deserve to have the peace of mind that my parents are healthy and okay. But don't ever try hinder my process of healing. If you cannot contribute towards it, that's fine, but don't hinder it. Listen, if you're going through healing, I don't know who you're healing from. I don't know what you're healing from. This might be your parent, might be somebody trusted, might be you're healing from abuse of all sorts. I just want to say to you that although healing is messy, you've got this. Do what it takes to take care of yourself. Do what it takes to heal yourself. Because we cannot repeat certain cycles. And as someone who has been through some type of abuse and is healing, you owe it to your children. You owe it to the next generation. You owe it to society and to yourself, most importantly, to heal. So take it seriously. And if you have to, unfortunately, block your own parent and stay away from them, if that's what it takes for you to heal, hey, that's what you need. If you're someone like me who still wants to be around your parents and still be able to help them and be present in their life, even though they may be the cause and the perpetrator or the encourager of your abuse, if you need to stay away from them, or if you need to be around them still for whatever reason, I just strongly encourage you that you set strict boundaries in place that they do not violate your process of healing. I appreciate you hearing this message. And I really hope that not only hope, I know that this message is going to help you. And I hope that you take your time in your healing process. And I wish you the best of luck. Love you.